What's up everybody, Kyle here at Let's Talk Wax, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 highest selling out of 2024 Bowman draft. Now this is obviously not my top 10 video. I did do a top 25, I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one, but this is just the top 10 highest selling, so you guys that are jumping in breaks or looking to maybe sell some cards to kind of catch the back end of the post-release hype before it kind of dwindles down. These are going to be the top highest selling players. I've also got some honorable mentions and some of the top selling pitchers as well to go through. But draft usually does a good job of holding its value for a longer course of time than say a Chrome release. So some of these guys we may not see too big of a dip, and with spring training pretty much right around the corner, we could also see some of these prices hold a little bit better than per se like a Chrome release, where the prices really tend to dip off rather quickly. But we're not going to waste much time talking about that stuff. We're going to get into our top 10. I did not put Juggernaut rankings on this video just because none of these players, or the majority of these players, didn't have a large enough sample size to qualify for my 2024 Juggernaut rankings. I did put their MLB.com rankings on there, and of course their Let's Talk Wax rank, which goes Elite 1 through 7, Elite obviously being the highest, 1 being the second highest, and 7 being the lowest, and that's just based on my personal opinion. But we're going to start off with James Tibbs, whose cards are selling for right around $75 right now. He had a pretty rough go with his debut between low A and high A. And as I said, I'm not going to get into a lot of the stats and stuff in this video. If you guys want to catch all the really more thorough breakdown to the players, you can see my top 25 video. But Tibbs is selling for around $75 right now. Carson Bench is number 9, had a pretty solid debut in low A. He's number 99 on MLB.com's top 100, and he's a 2.5 Let's Talk Wax rank, and he's selling for around $80. And another thing to mention too before we get any further is these comps, you know, they kind of vary between probably like $10 below or $10 higher than what I might have had. You'll see some sales, especially for some of the top guys like Caglione. There are some pretty spacious comps, you know, maybe a $25 difference, but I tried to find the average of all the comps I could find. There's not a ton of comps out there for base stuff yet, but I took what I could use off of 180 Point, probably my favorite site for looking up comps. At number 8, we've got Braden Montgomery, who was recently traded to the Chicago White Sox in the Dylan Cease deal with Teal, Midrith, and Wickelman Gonzalez. Now that was kind of a quick trade. It's not very often that you see players who come out of fresh release and they get traded to another team straight away. So there's going to be another guy in my top 5 that also happened to. So Braden Montgomery did not make his professional debut yet. He's number 54 on MLB.com's top 100, and he's a 2.5 Let's Talk Wax rank, and he's the first in this group to break the $100 mark. Nick Kurtz had a stellar debut in between high or low A and double A. Small sample size though, but I do really believe in this kid's bat. He was a Let's Talk Wax rank of 1.5. So I'm thinking the value is kind of struck by the fact that he was drafted by the Oakland A's, and that's not a very big market team, along with like the Colorado Rockies and the Chicago White Sox as well. One of my favorite sleeper prospects in this release, I'll probably post that video next week, but one of my favorite sleeper prospects in this video was drafted by the Colorado Rockies, and I really hated that because I do think he has some skills, but we'll see what happens with him with their player development being kind of lackluster. Cam Smith is going to be number 6. He was also traded to the Astros in the Kyle Tucker deal. So we've got 2 players, as I mentioned before, that right off the bat after release, they are going to be with a different team than their first Chrome Auto says. And I had a lot of questions about whether that affects value. I haven't really seen a dramatic decrease, but there's really not enough data out there to do, I guess, a serious research study on, because of the way, I mean, the volatility of the Bowman Chrome market, the performance swings and things like that would have to be factored out. It's really hard to do that over the course of a season, but it would probably, I'd say you could do it now, but you're also going to experience some of that dip from post-hype release, so it's going to be really hard to determine something like that. I think it's all in the eye of the collector, whether they would want to collect somebody who doesn't have their first Chrome Auto, being the team that they're currently on. But if you look at Juan Soto autos, it hasn't really hurt his value too much in the past. But we're going to jump into our honorable mentions and some pitchers that are actually selling pretty well right now. All right, so we've got 3 pitchers above the $50 mark. Chase Burns obviously being the best pitcher, in my opinion, in this release. He's a Let's Talk Wax rank of 1. He's also the highest ranking player in this whole release of all the draftees out of 2024 Bowman draft. There's several 1.5s, but Chase Burns is the only one. There's no elite players. I could have maybe put Burns as elite, but when we think of like Paul Skeens, he would probably be double elite, even though I don't have double elite. He's kind of a generational talent. Chase Burns has really special stuff, but I just don't see it being quite as good as what Paul Skeens has. But he's a very high-ranking player for me on this checklist, and probably one of the top chases in it as well. Hagen Smith's another big arm. He's Let's Talk Wax rank of 1.5, $75 auto right now. And Cam Caminiti with the Braves. The Braves do a really good job of developing pitching, and he is a high school arm, and his cards are right around $50 right now. We've got Blake Burke, Kellen Lindsey, Seaver King, Ethan Anderson, Kalen Culpepper, and Dante Nori, all between the $50 to $35 mark. So those are some guys you could target on your breaks. Trey Yasevich, another big arm. He's Let's Talk Wax rank of 2. His cards really aren't selling for as much as I thought they would, but he's a top 100 pitcher. We got Braylon Payne, Dylan Dreiling, and Ryan Waldschmidt with Theo Gillen in there, rounding up the $30 autos. And Ryan Waldschmidt and Theo Gillen seem kind of cheap. They aren't going to quite qualify for my sleeper prospects video that I'm going to do next week. Those are going to be the guys that are right around the $15 mark, but definitely two surprising price points right there for Waldschmidt and Gillen, in my opinion. Now, before we get into our top 5, I'd like to talk about PSA and also their new Vault feature. Now, in Bowman baseball cards, grading is a very popular part of the hobby. You can submit cards right after release to PSA for grading, and you can sell them directly on eBay for 7-day auctions and for buy it now as well. And this is very important based on the volatility of this market, especially after release. You know, prices tend to drop very quickly. So the faster, if you do want to submit cards for grading, the faster you get those cards submitted and sold, probably the more money you're going to recoup from your box breaks. So really cool feature with PSA there and subbing. And they've also implemented a new Vault system, which is a really cool feature. If you don't want to sell your cards right away, you can choose to have them graded and put into the PSA Vault. In the PSA Vault, they will store those cards for you, so you don't have to worry about taking up closet space or room space wherever you store your cards. If you choose to sell those cards on eBay, it's a very simple click. You can choose to have them sell them on a buy it now and 7-day auction as well. So if a prospect gets hot and you're not at home, or you have work that day, or you have to take your kids somewhere, you have a very busy life like me, a full-time job, you can simply go into the PSA Vault and click to sell instead of having to come home, find the card, scan the card, list the card. It's just a very seamless transaction. They do all the shipping for you and packaging, so it's very seamless if you're busy like me. But be sure to check it out. I'm going to tell you guys about how to actually use the Vault in the next video I do, but another cool feature by PSA. So definitely very important to the Bowman hobby as well with the grading. Well, that's going to bring us to the top 5 selling Bowman Chrome autos out of 2024 Bowman draft. And I wasn't too surprised. Now, my rankings do differ here than what this top 5 says, but it's pretty close. The guys that are in the highest selling top 5 and the guys that are in my top 10 on my top 25 rankings are pretty close. There's not a huge difference here, and when you're dealing with the top 5, I mean, there's not really much difference between those guys that are in the top 5. They're all pretty solid prospects, but we'll start with Bryce Rayner. We don't have any data on him yet, along with Connor Griffin, so those are both kind of wild cards. You're going off scouting report. I did watch some video on both players, and you can get my full breakdown of what I think of them on that video. I'll link at the end of this one, but they're both close to the top 50 and MLB.com's top 100. Connor Griffin is actually at number 50. They're both Let's Talk Wax rank of 2, and they're both prep bats that are selling for around $150. And just my personal take on prospecting in general, I do favor college bats that most often play in the SEC. I talked about this in my top 25 video. I'm a big SEC homer. I watch a lot of SEC baseball, so I do tend to favor those players just because I see them more, but prep bats are still kind of risky for me because you don't really understand what the learning curve is going to be with them until we get data, especially guys who have no track record yet in minor league baseball. So Griffin and Rayner are still kind of wild cards, and they're pretty expensive for having absolutely no data besides the scouting reports in the video, which is kind of iffy at best on prep bats. So it's hard to find good video on them. The top three are no surprise at all. I had Christian Moore at number 1 in my top 25 video. Watched a ton of him at Tennessee last year. I'm really liked his offensive profile. He hit 347 with a 237 ISO between low A, high, and double A this year. Just a really big bat. I think MLB.com may have him a little too low for my liking on their ranking system. He's a guy that I really think could crack the major leagues, especially in the Angel organization in 2025. So his call-up could be imminent, especially after a really good performance in his debut. Travis Bazzana, who I thought would actually be the big chase. I thought he would probably be the highest selling out of this. Did not have a very stellar debut in high A. But if you watched any of him in college, he does have some pretty special tools, some pretty good speed, power numbers for sure. He's number 12 in MLB.com's top 100. He's a Let's Talk Wax rank of 1.5 with more, and his cards are selling around $300. And these are all base auto comps. I know I've got color autos in the pictures in the slide, but these are all base auto comps. I probably should have mentioned that earlier in the video. And at number 1 is Jack Caglione. Now, I'm not sure if people are kind of following the Shohei Ohtani hype here with the possibility of him being a two-way player, but I did watch a lot of Caglione on the mound this past spring at Florida, and the control issues almost seemed detrimental to his pitching at the next level. I don't really see Caglione being the next Shohei Ohtani and being a two-way player and being a Cy Young candidate on the mound along with playing a position when he's not pitching. I just feel like the control issues were too detrimental. But, we'll have to see what the Royals do. They have not put him on the mound yet. He's just hit so far in his career. He had an okay debut. 241 batting average, hit some home runs. It's just big power there, and really the big question is going to be if the swing and miss is too much to get to his natural raw power, because he's got 70 grade power on almost all mainstream sites. And if you watched any SEC baseball last year with Florida, you're aware of the power he possesses. But like I said, there's not a high offensive profile with him being a first baseman. I don't see the pitching coming through, but he is the number 1 auto out of this release. If you hit him, you are going to hopefully recoup probably about 1/32 to 1/16 of the price you pay for a jumbo box at $350. All jokes aside, he is going to help you pay for the majority of your box if you do hit a Caglione. But that's going to wrap this video up. I want to give a quick shout out to all of my Patreon level 3 subscribers. You guys rock, and be sure to check out the PSA Vault. Some really cool stuff over there. Y'all have a great night. Hopefully this video helped y'all.